It was supposed to be a beautiful day, her day. The villagers gathered, laughter echoed, drums roared, and joy filled the air. Everyone waited eagerly for the moment when the groom, Emeka, would step forward and claim his bride, Ngozi. The air smelled of celebration, but then everything changed. In the middle of the crowd, as the drums beat louder, the young man suddenly froze. His eyes went pale, his hands trembled, and before anyone could understand what was happening, he dropped a calabash of wine and whispered the unthinkable, he couldn't do it. Gasps spread through the crowd like wildfire. The music stopped. The laughter died. The bride's smile faded. He turned away, shame on his face, leaving her standing there, humiliated in front of everyone. This was not the first time, nor the second. It was the third time this same thing had happened to her. A woman so beautiful that the sun seemed to pause when she walked by. Respectful, calm, gentle, the kind of woman every man dreamed of. And yet, for some reason, they always left. The whispers in the village began again. Maybe she's cursed. Maybe her mother offended the gods. Maybe something is wrong with her spirit. But her mother, a strong woman with eyes that carried both love and secrets, could only hold Ngozi close and whisper, "The gods know what we do not." Still, the pain was unbearable. How many times can one heart break before it gives up? The next morning, her mother gave her the usual bitter drink, the same strange mixture she'd taken since she was a child. She complained as always, but her mother only smiled and said, "Good medicine is never sweet." And so she drank, unaware that this drink carried more than herbs. It carried a story her mother would never tell. As she swept the compound, her mind was heavy. The villagers' eyes followed her, their whispers sharper than blades. Somewhere, in another part of the village, the man who rejected her sat alone, haunted by what he had seen the night before. He could not tell anyone. No one would believe him. But in his dreams, he saw something dark. Something that wore her face, yet was not her. He wanted to speak the truth, but fear chained his tongue. Meanwhile, far away, Kosera, her friend, came running with news. She had just visited the village seer, Mama Eagle, the one people whispered about in secret. And so, Kosera whispered about Mama Eagle, the mysterious old woman who lived by the edge of the forest. They said she spoke to spirits, healed the sick, and knew the truth about hidden things. When the girl mentioned Mama's name, her mother's face changed. Fear. Anger. Something deeper. She warned her never to speak that name again. That was strange. Why such fear? What was the woman hiding? But her daughter's heart was restless. Each time she tried to believe her mother's words, the strange dreams returned, dreams of dark rivers, shadows whispering her name, and glowing eyes watching from the forest. But before they could go, the man returned, the same one who left her at the altar. His face was filled with regret. He begged for forgiveness, saying he still loved her. But love and pain can't share the same heart. She told him to leave, but he couldn't. Something inside him needed to confess, something too heavy to carry alone. He had seen a vision, something that made him run that day. But before he could speak it out loud, fear sealed his lips again. And so, the truth remained hidden. That night, as the moonlight fell across the quiet village, he sat alone and whispered to himself, "How long can I keep this secret? How long can I lie to everyone, even her?" He disappeared into silence, leaving behind confusion and guilt that hung heavy in the air like harmattan dust. That night, Ngozi sat in the moonlight, tears streaming down her face, the silver light catching the pain in her eyes. Her friend's words echoed in her mind, "This is not normal." 3 suitors, 3 heartbreaks, 3 public humiliations. How could this keep happening? Her mother tried to console her, speaking of the gods, of destiny, of patience. But the girl's heart had grown weary of waiting. She wanted answers. The next morning, the mother decided to take Ngozi along on a trip to her hometown. Perhaps the change of air would ease her spirit. But on the way, something terrifying happened. An antelope, wild-eyed and fierce, charged out of the forest, running straight toward them. Before the girl could react, it struck her hard to the ground. Everything went dark. When she opened her eyes again, she was lying on the dusty path, her mother kneeling beside her. The antelope had vanished. The mother said it was gone, that it always disappeared after knocking her unconscious. But why did it always attack only her? And why, each time she awoke, did her mother look so calm, as if she'd expected it? The girl and her mother returned from their trip, thinking they'd only been gone a few hours. But everyone swore they'd been away for 2 days. She laughed at first, thinking it was a mistake. But then, Kosara confirmed it too, they had truly been missing. Something wasn't adding up. What happened during those missing days? Where had they gone after the antelope's attack? And why did her mother refuse to speak about it? This was strange. Too strange. Kosara and Ngozi determined to go visit the priestess. But on the way, something strange happened. Ngozi suddenly stopped walking. Her eyes widened, fixed on a point deep in the forest. Then, without a word, she began to move toward it, slow, lost, as if being pulled by an invisible hand. Kosara called her name again and again, but she didn't respond. Suddenly, she collapsed unconscious. The friends screamed for help until a young man passing by heard her cries and rushed over. Together, they carried her home. When they arrived, Ngozi's mother was furious. Instead of showing concern, she shouted at them, ordering them never to come near Ngozi again. That was when Kosara realized something was very wrong. Why would a mother refuse help for her child? Why would she silence every person who tried to find a solution? And why did every path to healing lead to fear and warning? The priestess had said a wizard had married her in the spirit realm. But what no one knew was who had opened the door that allowed that dark union to begin. After all the pain, fear, and confusion, the young man Emeka went to the great priestess, his face pale, his heart heavy. He begged for help. The woman he loved, Ngozi, was trapped by strange powers. Every time he was with her, shadows surrounded him. Nightmares haunted his sleep. Even when Kosara tried to take her to the shrine, she collapsed on the way. The priestess listened in silence. Then, with her voice deep and calm, she said, "Take me to her at once." And so, they went. When they arrived at the woman's compound, the atmosphere was thick. The air smelled of secrets. The priestess barely stepped in when the girl's mother screamed in anger, demanding they leave her home. Her fury burned like fire, wild, defensive, desperate. But the priestess stood her ground. She looked straight into the woman's eyes and said, "Your daughter is married to a wizard, and you know it." The mother froze. Her lips trembled. The truth she had buried for years was rising to the surface. Long ago, when she was young and desperate, she had visited a wizard. Her husband's family had threatened to send her away because she could not bear children. In her pain, she had listened to a friend who promised help, and that promise led her into darkness. The wizard had agreed to give her children, a boy and a girl, but there was a price. He demanded one of the children in return. The woman, desperate for motherhood, had chosen to give up her daughter. He told her that when the girl turned 20, she must be brought to him, to serve as his bride in the world of spirits. And from that day, her life became a chain of lies. She raised Ngozi in fear, forcing her to drink strange herbs every month, herbs that bound her spirit to the wizard's world. Each time the girl went missing for days, her mother would lie, saying an antelope had attacked her, hiding the truth of what really happened. The girl had been living 2 lives, one in the human world, another in darkness. When the priestess revealed this secret, the mother broke down. Tears streamed down her face. She confessed everything, the bargain, the fear, the endless nightmares that haunted her every time she looked into her daughter's eyes. The priestess lifted her staff and called upon the spirits of light. The air changed instantly. A storm rose. The trees groaned as a dark presence filled the compound. From the shadows, the wizard appeared. His eyes burned red, his voice deep and thunderous. He screamed that the girl belonged to him, that she was his bride, and that no one could break the bond. But the priestess stood firm. She called upon the fire of light, the wind of truth, and the power of the gods. Flames rose from the earth, circling around her as she commanded the wizard to show himself fully. A fierce battle began, light against darkness, truth against deception. The wizard roared, summoning spirits of the night, but the priestess's power burned brighter. She declared, lies cannot stand against truth forever. With one final strike of her staff, the earth trembled. The fire flashed. And the wizard vanished, consumed by his own darkness. Silence fell. The wind that once carried fear now carried peace. The chains that had bound the girl's soul were broken. The priestess turned to her and said, "You are free." Tears of joy flowed down her cheeks. The curse was gone. The spell was broken. For the first time in her life, she could breathe without the weight of fear. Her mother knelt before her, begging for forgiveness, for the choices she had made out of desperation, for the lies, for the pain. And though her heart was heavy, the girl forgave her. She said it was over now. The past could rest. The night of torment had finally given way to the morning of freedom. The storm was over. The chains were broken. The curse was undone. A new chapter began, one filled with peace, love, and laughter. And as the sun rose over the quiet village, the young man returned. This time, there were no nightmares, no shadows, only smiles and gentle laughter. The love that had once been cursed was now blessed. And together, they walked into a new dawn, free at last.